Hello, my name is Tony Slattery. Some of you might recognise my face from Whose Line Is It Anyway, that much beloved show of yesteryear which was all about improvisation. Now, I'm coming to the Marine Theatre, Lyme Regis, to do a show. The first half is a no-holds-barred interview with me. Our audience can ask questions about my glittering showbiz career, which may, of course, involve some alarming elements. The second half of the show is my favourite old-fashioned improv games from that gilded era. You'll know what they are when you see them, and you will get involved as well. Don't you worry about that. Anyway, doors open 7 p.m, show starts at 8. Anything could happen. I'll see you there.
You probably remember him from his spontaneous humor, that effortless wit, that sharp, almost chaotic timing. Tony Slattery was the kind of comedian who could make you laugh so hard you'd forget where you were. The kind of guy who'd pull something out of thin air, make a face, and boom, instant comedy gold. Born in London in 1959, Tony Slattery wasn't just a face on TV. He was a fixture in the British comedy scene, a guy who made an impact in ways that transcended scripted lines and rehearsed routines. This was a man whose humor wasn't confined to the set. It oozed from him like an unfiltered truth wrapped up in punchlines. Slattery wasn't someone you would forget easily. The public knew him for his appearances on shows like Whose Line Is It Anyway?, where improvisation was king, and he was a prince in that kingdom. His career, though, didn't start at the top. He didn't just wake up one day and find himself in front of the camera, ready to crack jokes. It took years of grinding, honing his craft, and waiting for the right moment when the universe would decide it was time for Tony to shine. In the early days, Tony Slattery wasn't just waiting around for a gig to fall in his lap. He was putting in the work, just like any other comedian, stand-up comedy, TV sketches, you name it. His early career was a whirlwind of performances that saw him taking on whatever opportunities he could. But then the moment arrived. It was Whose Line Is It Anyway?, the show that would go on to define his career. For those who didn't know, Whose Line was the kind of show where spontaneity ruled and the actors were given just a tiny suggestion to work with. A word, an object, a feeling. Then boom! They'd have to come up with a comedy sketch, a song, or a scene. And Tony? Tony was the one who made it look so easy. The man had a knack for turning nothing into something. He wasn't just reacting to the game, he was playing it like a master, twisting the rules, making the others break character with nothing but a well-timed quip or a bizarre accent. His comedic style? Pure madness, but in the best way possible. A little chaotic, a little reckless, but never forced. The humor Tony brought to Whose Line wasn't the type that relied on cheap jokes or laugh tracks. It was a real, raw form of comedy where every second mattered. No script, no second take, just a guy, the stage, and a whole lot of ridiculousness. His energy was infectious, his improvisational skills unmatched, and that's what stuck with people. He didn't just make you laugh, he made you feel something. Whether it was his ridiculous accents or the absurd characters he'd suddenly slip into, Tony's ability to captivate and entertain was unmatched. It wasn't just comedy, it was a gift. But what Tony gave us went beyond the laugh. He became a part of something much bigger than himself, a part of a movement in British comedy that pushed boundaries, that took risks. His work on Whose Line helped set the stage for a whole generation of comedians, some of whom went on to be legends in their own right. He didn't just show up for the laughs, he showed up for the craft. Comedy wasn't a job for Tony. It was an art, something he breathed and lived. And boy, did he live it. And still, the man behind the comedy wasn't immune to the darkness. Life wasn't always a punchline for Tony Slattery. Beneath the jokes and the performances, there were moments of struggle, of personal demons that couldn't be banished with a quick one-liner. Those of us who admired his work had no idea just how much Tony was battling behind closed doors. Mental health issues, addiction, these weren't things that showed up on camera, but they were part of Tony's life and they affected him deeply. He wasn't the only one. Many performers find solace in their art, only to discover that the world of fame isn't always as glamorous as it seems. For Tony, the pressure, the expectations, the spotlight, it all took a toll. Addiction became a battle he couldn't always win, and his mental health struggles were something he was all too familiar with. He was honest about it, and that honesty, even when it was hard to face, became a part of his legacy. It made him relatable. It made him human. In the years following his rise to fame, Tony's struggles with addiction were often in the headlines, though they were never part of his act. It's easy to forget that the guy who could make a room erupt in laughter was also a man who could feel the weight of the world pressing down on him just like anyone else. And that's what made him more than just a comedian. He was a person, a complex person with his own battles, his own pain. When the news of Tony's death hit, it wasn't just a loss for his family and close friends. It was a loss for the whole comedy community. Tony Slattery was a pioneer in the world of improvisational comedy. His death was sudden, and it was a reminder of just how fleeting life can be. The way Tony went, quietly after suffering a heart attack, seemed almost fitting. He wasn't the type to make a spectacle of his own departure. His death was a somber end to a career that had been anything but predictable. The impact of his death resonated far beyond his immediate circle. Fans, colleagues, fellow comedians, all of them felt the sting of losing such a singular talent. Social media was flooded with tributes. The world knew that British comedy had lost a giant, someone who had redefined what it meant to be funny on television. But it wasn't just his fans who mourned. The tributes that came in from fellow comedians, people who had shared the stage with him, people who had looked up to him, were filled with admiration, gratitude, and sadness. They spoke of Tony not just as a colleague, but as a friend, a mentor, someone who had given so much to the industry. There are certain moments that stay with you, moments that become almost iconic in the context of a career. Tony had his fair share of those. Think about it. Improvising an entire song with nothing but a suggestion from the audience, delivering a punchline so perfectly timed you couldn't help but laugh, even if you were trying not to. Tony had the ability to turn a room full of strangers into his personal playground. Whether it was on Whose Line Is It Anyway? Or some other show, there were moments when Tony took the stage, and it was clear that he was the one everyone was there to see. Those are the moments that make a career. Those are the moments that cement a legacy. And that legacy, even after his passing, continues to live on. Fellow comedians, his fans, his family, everyone remembers the Tony Slattery that gave so much to the world. His impact wasn't just about laughs. It was about how he made people feel. He made them feel understood. He made them feel that it was okay to be a little bit messed up, a little bit wild. His comedy wasn't just funny, it was human. It had heart. The cause of his death, a heart attack, was a final reminder of just how fragile life can be. Even those who seem invincible, those who make us laugh the hardest, have their own battles. It's easy to forget that. We see people like Tony Slattery with their quick wit and natural charm, and we think they're immune to the same struggles we all face. But the truth is, everyone has their own fight, their own challenges to face. Tony's battle, sadly, was one that couldn't be won. In his final years, Tony's contributions to the entertainment industry didn't stop. He continued to perform, to entertain, to bring joy to people's lives, even as he dealt with his personal challenges. His commitment to his craft was unwavering. It's easy to get lost in the headlines, to remember a person only for their struggles or their downfall. But Tony Slattery wasn't defined by his struggles. He was defined by his brilliance, by the laughter he brought to people's lives, by the impact he made on the world of comedy. And that's the way he should be remembered. Tony's death left a hole in the comedy world, but it also left a legacy of humor that will live on in the people who watched him, the comedians who were inspired by him, and the fans who continue to celebrate his work. Tony Slattery might be gone, but the laughter he created, that's something that sticks around forever.